came in here in November of, I think it was 1954. Everything in here was broken. By this time I had gotten married. My wife became interested in the theater business, thank God. I leased it out. In fact, it got so desperate. He leased it, and he put sex films in here. And he called it the Fox Theater then. The phone never stopped at the house. People calling, every church in Clintonville was calling, ministers. When we took it back over, we had a lucky break. We opened it back up as the Indianola. We played Butterfield 8, and we did one hell of a business.
At that time, I don't think we took the Indianola very seriously, because it was just one of a number of neighborhood theaters. It was like, oh, the neighborhood grocery store, something like that. You took it for granted. But the neighborhood theaters started to disappear, and in the 60s and in the 70s, and all of a sudden, we began to recognize Studio 35 as something special, because it was still there. And it was one of the few neighborhood theaters that still existed. And it was still showing wonderful movies.
So this theater at that time was still sort of a step-down neighborhood theater. And whatever, when they was done playing the features downtown, Frank would get them. So we played all the John Waynes, we played George C. Scott, we played all that first-run stuff as soon as it left downtown.
So I turned this theater over to my wife, and the Studio 35 she came up with the name, would never have been a Studio 35 if she hadn't pressed for me to get Mr. Fox out of here. That's when she got into what we call art films. I mean, like the Fellinis and the Bergmans and films like that.
Frank would have movies here. It wasn't quite a repertory house, but he was trying. So he had a lot of old pictures here, stuff that you couldn't get on TV.
The couple that I was mentioned I came with, we had both just recently gotten married, and we were talking about the lovers' seats there. I don't know what they're called now. They're probably called the fat person seats. I don't know what they're called, but when we came, we sat in one, and we suggested they sit in the other one, and they thought, no, they weren't going to do that. That was silly. That was a waste of time. And they got divorced about a year later, so they wouldn't sit in the lovers' seat.
Sally had the ideas. I was sort of the nuts and bolts. It was her idea too, I should say, about the liquor. He said, if you could ever get liquor in there, and I went to work on it. I got the liquor license in, and it was a big hit. We was the largest beer stop at one time on the north side.
That was a very popular attraction. This movie theater was very unique, having both the bar and the beer, and also you could smoke while you're watching the movies.
One thing he did, I remember I was able to come in and get not just a beer, but I would be able to get a bourbon and sit and have a bourbon with it. I'm not quite sure how he did that. I'm told that he may not have had a license to do that. He may have just done it and said to hell with it.
One day at work, they said Studio 35 made the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and it was because they had put the bar in, and they were talking about how small theaters were what they were doing to try to compete with the multiplexes and the bigger theaters that were coming out.
Used to come on a Friday or Saturday night, see the first picture sitting down in the seats. That was usually the one I came for. Didn't care as much about the second one, so I'd come back, sit at the bar. It was great. You'd sit here, watch the movie through the window with the sound piped in back here, and order a beer. They'd come and serve it right here at the bar. It was wonderful. And then if you sat here long enough nursing your beer, after a while they just put bowls of popcorn out here on the counter. You didn't have to buy any popcorn. That was great. That was the time when the break between movies, they always played, I believe, side one of Abbey Road all the way through. And that was exactly the length of time that the breaks took. And then you were on to the second movie. It was great.
We had a African gray parrot, and his name was Joe.
The parrot was always part of the early scene. You could hear it in the background, sometimes commenting, sometimes just making noise at the wrong time, especially during tense scenes.
He became quite a fixture to the place.
I was told never to try to feed it because he would probably fly. Well, after working around the bird for months and months, and one day he was squawking, he would all the time whistle and say, "Hey Joe, hey Joe, hey Joe." And I went over and fed him, or attempted to. And I opened the cage, and Joe took the flight. And I chased him, and he was gone. So I called Frank, and we put out the information. It was in the news, it was in the radio, it was on television, it was in the newspaper a couple of days. And after 3 or 4 days, Joe got cold and was sitting on someone's roof north of here, just about 3 or 4 miles, calling out his name. And all night long, they called. We went over and retrieved the bird. I never fed him again.